Again, it's great to have some of our students from St. Mary's School. And when I have the children to Mass, usually on the first Friday at St. Mary of the Assumption, I ask them questions. When we concluded the school year last year, I asked a few of the little ones, what was the most important subject you learned this year? Several of them said, cursive. I said, cursive? Wow, they're still teaching penmanship in school. This is wonderful. Because we often lament that handwriting is seen its last days. Very few people take the time to take pen to paper and write out a letter. Sometimes Twitter's 140 characters suffices, a text or an email. And yet, when the last time you got a letter in the mail, in snail mail, a beautiful thank you card, didn't it touch your heart? In my office, I keep a basket of correspondence, people that I hear from time to time, a good thank you. And I need to look at that basket every once in a while if I need encouragement. Paul, in his letters to the Ephesian community today, gives those early followers of Jesus Christ that same encouragement. They were probably questioning why they were chosen to follow Jesus Christ. What plan does God have for them? Aren't those questions we have? Why am I on this earth? What is my calling in life? Paul speaks to them and to us. For we have been chosen by God to be blameless and holy. Not because we are holy people, we do wrong things every once in a while, but God meets us where we're at in our spiritual journey, in our condition, and He allows us to grow in sanctity, in holiness, not calling us out of the world, but to remain in the world, which has been blessed and showered with His grace to be transformed. We have become adopted children, made brothers and sisters, yes, by our createdness in the image and likeness of God, but then being conformed to the image and His likeness by our baptism as children to the Father, who showers us again with grace upon grace, not from earth, but from heaven. Every spiritual blessing, Paul reminds us, has been given to us. Redemption. We think about that great mystery as we gather around this altar today. Redemption by the blood of Christ, poured out on the cross for you and for me, giving us forgiveness of our transgressions, and the wisdom revealed, the plan that God has for all His children for all times. And when we hear about these beautiful things, we ought to give praise and glory for this grace given. How often we should communicate what we do with our daily life, that we have gathered around the altar to sing God's praises, thanking Him for all these things that have been given in Christ Jesus. If we look out into our world, we may feel the bit of anger and sadness that touch the heart of Jesus in our gospel today. The hypocrisy of those people who were the so-called religious experts of this times, the Pharisees and the scribes, who did not make it easy for people to follow God, but rather made it oh so difficult. Their hypocrisy was to preach one way and to live their lives in something totally other than the truth. We can point around in our world in various sectors of our society and say, yes, hypocrisy, unfortunately, is alive and well. But the question is, what are we called to do about it? To be holy in the midst of hypocrisy. We do that, and the sign of that you were tuned in today, either on TV or viewing this broadcast later, says that, yes, God has called you to allow Him to be reminded of His care for all of creation. We get those signals from people who give us encouragement. And in our world, we still hear about prophets' voices that are slain, the church persecuted throughout the world, people who are afraid to voice their faith, keeping their faith life separate from their public one. And also, we look to God to give us strength during the days where we discern what decisions to make in the voting booth. We ask God to transform our hearts, and also thanking God for models of prophetic voice. Pope Francis is often communicating by letter how we are to care for each other, his recent apostolic exhortation on how important the gift of the family is, the gift of God's love, which is the source of family stability and societal wellness, how we care for the environment as well, another God's gift. May we, as we bring the gifts of bread and wine to the altar today, pray that all those who are discerning their vocation in holiness may be granted their wish. The question is, today, what is God's plan for you today? How can you enter into this great sacred mystery? And thanking God for the times that you have led people to God, rather than being pharisaical in our attitude, living as hypocrites. No, we ask God to have us be authentically holy, for he has called us and blessed us from the foundation of the world.